I'm Margaret Chen and I'm 68 years old. The day my grandson Jake pulled me out of my house like it was on fire, I thought he'd lost his mind. Turns out he'd saved my life. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. Jake had stopped by to fix a squeaky door hinge in my guest bedroom. He's 23, a carpenter's apprentice, working with his hands just like his grandfather did. My daughter Vanessa always looked down on that. He could have been an engineer, she'd say with that pinched expression. Instead, he's swinging a hammer like some common laborer. Common laborer. That's what she called her own father, my beloved husband Richard, who built a construction company from nothing and left me more financially secure than Vanessa could imagine. Jake had been in my basement for maybe 5 minutes when he came thundering up those stairs. I'd never seen him look like that. His face was completely drained of color, and his hands were shaking as he grabbed my purse from the kitchen counter. "Grandma, we need to leave right now. Don't turn on any lights, don't touch the thermostat, don't turn on anything." "Jake, what are you talking about?" "I was just about to make us some tea." "No." He practically shouted it, then lowered his voice, glancing toward the windows. "Please, Grandma, just trust me. Grab your medication and anything you absolutely need. We're leaving in 2 minutes." The urgency in his voice terrified me. I grabbed my pill organizer, my phone, and my laptop. Jake was already at the door, keys in hand. He'd grabbed my coat and was holding it out to me. "What did you see down there?" I asked as he helped me into the coat. "I'll tell you everything once we're away from the house." "Please, Grandma, we have to go now." We were in his truck and halfway down my street when my phone started ringing. "Vanessa," I reached to answer it. "Don't," Jake said sharply. "Not yet. Let me explain first." He drove to a coffee shop 3 miles from my house, parked in the back, and finally turned to look at me. His hands were still shaking. "Grandma, someone modified your furnace. The exhaust venting has been completely rerouted. Instead of going outside, it's being pumped back into your house through the ductwork." I stared at him. That's not possible. The furnace was just serviced 2 months ago. By who?" "Vanessa arranged it. She said she knew someone who could give me a good deal. Her husband Mark supervised the whole thing. He's a mechanical engineer, you know? He wanted to make sure it was done right." Jake's jaw clenched. "Mark did this, Grandma, and he did it in a way that wouldn't show up on a standard inspection. He sealed off the external vent and ran new ductwork through the walls. Your carbon monoxide detector has been replaced with a fake one." I only noticed because I was looking at the floor joists and saw where new ducts had been installed. They didn't match the original system. "Grandma," my phone rang again. "Vanessa." Then a text. "Mom, where are you? Why aren't you answering?" "How do you know it's intentional?" I asked, though cold dread was already spreading through my chest. Maybe it was just installed wrong. Jake pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. "This is what I saw. The external vent has been completely sealed with professional-grade caulking and then covered with siding to match your house. The new ductwork routes everything back inside. This wasn't a mistake. This took planning and expertise. And it would VA killed you within weeks, once winter started and you were running the heat regularly." I looked at the photo, even I could see it wasn't right. The ductwork looked like something from a horror movie, deliberately designed to poison the air in my home. "We need to call the police," I said. "Already did. From your driveway, they're sending a detective and a forensics team to your house right now. That's why we had to leave. They didn't want anyone tampering with evidence." My phone rang a 3rd time, then a 4th. "Vanessa." "Mark." "Vanessa again." Then my son-in-law left a voicemail. "Margaret, this is Mark. Vanessa is very worried. You weren't answering your door when we stopped by. Please call us back immediately." They'd gone to my house 20 minutes after Jake and I left. "Why would they do this?" I whispered, though I already knew. Money. It always came down to money. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. Let me back up and explain how I got here. How my own daughter could want me dead. Richard and I got married 46 years ago. We were both 22 kids, really, but we knew what we wanted. Richard worked construction, learning every trade from the ground up. I worked as a bookkeeper for a real estate office. We saved every penny. By the time we were 30, Richard had started his own construction company, Chen and Associates. He built it on reputation and integrity, never cutting corners, always delivering quality work. By the time we were 40, he employed 30 people and had contracts all over the county. I'd moved from bookkeeping to real estate sales, and I was good at it. Really good. I understood numbers, I understood people, and I understood the market. By the time I was 50, I was one of the top agents in the state. I bought investment properties, renovated them, sold some, kept others as rentals. When Richard and I were 58, we owned our home free and clear. had a portfolio of 12 rental properties worth collectively about $2.8 million, and had another $400,000 in retirement accounts. We'd done it all ourselves, through hard work and smart decisions. Vanessa hated it. She's 44 now, our only child. We'd wanted more kids, but it didn't happen, so we poured everything into Vanessa. Private schools, college fund, every opportunity. She got her MBA from a prestigious university, married Mark, who had his engineering degree. They had 2 kids, Jake and his younger sister Emma. But Vanessa always looked down on how Richard and I made our living blue-collar work. She'd say with a sniff, "We've moved beyond that." She worked as a financial advisor at a big firm. Mark worked for an HVAC engineering company. White-collar professionals, both of them. They made good money, combined income over $200,000 a year, but they spent more than they made. Big house in the expensive suburb, new cars every 3 years, private schools for the kids, country club membership, vacations to Europe, and they were drowning in debt. I didn't know how badly until after Richard died. Richard passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, and massive. He was working in his garage building a bookshelf for our living room, and he just ... went. The paramedics said he was probably gone before he hit the floor. I was devastated. We'd been married 44 years. He was my partner, my best friend, the love of my life. For months, I could barely function. Vanessa was supportive at first. She helped with the funeral arrangements, sorted through Richard's things with me, checked on me regularly. I thought maybe losing her father had reminded her what was important. Then 6 months after the funeral, she sat me down and said, "We needed to talk about my finances. Mom, you're 66 years old and living alone in a big house. You have all these properties to manage. It's too much for you. Mark and I think you should sell everything. Downsize to a condo, and let us help you manage the money." I'd looked at her carefully. "I'm perfectly capable of managing my own properties, Vanessa. I've been doing it for 30 years. But you're getting older. What if something happens to you? What if you become confused? We should set up a power of attorney now while you're still competent." Still competent? Like I was already slipping. "I appreciate your concern," I'd said coldly, "but I'm not ready to hand over control of my finances. When and if that time comes, I have an attorney who will handle things appropriately." She'd gotten a pinched, angry look on her face. "We're just trying to help you, Mom. You're sitting on nearly $3 million in assets while Mark and I are struggling." "Struggling? You make over $200,000 a year, and we have expenses. The kids' schools cost $60,000 a year combined. Our mortgage is $4,800 a month. We have car payments, insurance, the club membership. Then perhaps you should reconsider those expenses," I'd said quietly. "Your father and I built our wealth by living below our means, not above them." She'd left angry. Over the next year, the requests became demands. She needed money for Emma's orthodontist. They needed help with Jake's college tuition, even though he'd refused to go to college and was apprenticing as a carpenter instead. Their roof needed replacing. Mark's car had broken down. I helped with small things. Paid for Emma's braces. Gave them $5,000 when Mark's car needed repairs. But I wouldn't give them control over my assets, and I wouldn't fund their irresponsible lifestyle. A year ago, Vanessa stopped asking. She became cordial but distant. She'd visit every few weeks, always with Mark. They'd ask about my health. Suggest I should see a doctor about my memory issues, even though I had no memory issues. They'd point out when I forgot minor things, like everyone does. As evidence I was declining. "You told me you'd already paid that electric bill, Mom. Don't you remember? You said you were making pot roast for dinner, but you made chicken. Are you feeling confused? Gaslighting? That's what my friend Patricia called it. She's a retired social worker and she recognized the pattern immediately. They're building a case," Patricia had warned me, "documenting instances of confusion and incompetence. They're going to try to get guardianship or conservatorship over you." I'd laughed it off at first, but then I started noticing things. Vanessa taking photos of my kitchen when I left dishes in the sink. Mark asking pointed questions about my finances in front of witnesses. Them showing up with a doctor friend who wanted to give me a routine cognitive assessment. I declined the assessment. I was sharp as ever, managing 12 properties, handling all my own bills and maintenance schedules, but I started documenting everything too, keeping meticulous records, making sure all my accounts were in order. Then, 6 months ago, Vanessa suggested the furnace service. "Mom, when was the last time you had your HVAC system inspected? These old systems can be dangerous. Carbon monoxide leaks, you know? Mark knows someone who can give you a great deal on a full service and safety inspection." I'd agreed. It seemed reasonable. The furnace was 15 years old. Mark had supervised the whole thing. His guy spent 2 days at my house working in the basement. Mark was there most of the time explaining what they were doing, showing me the new carbon monoxide detector they'd installed. Top of the line, he'd said. This will keep you safe, Margaret. That was 4 months ago. Just as summer was ending, right before I'd need to start using the heat. They'd been planning my death since at least spring, probably longer. In the coffee shop, Jake called his mother. I listened to his side of the conversation. Mom, Grandma's fine, she's with me. No, we're not at her house, because the police are there. Yes, the police. I found something in her basement. Mom, stop. I know what you and Dad did to the furnace. No, I'm not confused. I'm a carpenter, Mom. I know what ductwork is supposed to look like. The police are examining it right now. No, Grandma's not coming home until this is resolved. He hung up. 2 minutes later, Vanessa called me directly. I answered, Mom, what is going on? Jake is saying crazy things about our furnace. He's always been dramatic. You know that. You need to come home right now. And Vanessa, I interrupted, my voice ice cold. Did you and Mark modify my furnace to pump carbon monoxide back into my house? Silence. Then that's insane. Why would we do that? For my money, for the properties you think you're entitled to? For the inheritance you don't want to wait for? Mom, you're confused. You're not thinking clearly. This is exactly what we've been worried about. Please, let us come get you. We'll take you to see Dr. Morrison, get you checked out. I'm 68 years old. Vanessa, not senile. I know exactly what's happening. The police are at my house right now examining the furnace you had Mark rigged to kill me. I suggest you get yourself a very good attorney. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Jake reached across the table and took my hand. Grandma, I'm so sorry. You saved my life, sweetheart. Don't you dare apologize. My phone rang again. I turned it off. 30 minutes later, Detective Sarah Morrison called Jake's phone. Yes, she said. The furnace had been deliberately modified. The external venting had been sealed. New ductwork had been installed to route exhaust back into the house. And the carbon monoxide detector was a dummy device with no actual sensors. A forensics team was documenting everything. This wasn't an accident, Detective Morrison said. This was attempted murder. Sophisticated, premeditated, and designed to look like natural causes or accidental poisoning. Mrs. Chen, we need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. At the police station, I told them everything. The pressure to sign over power of attorney, the gaslighting about my competence, Mark's expertise as a mechanical engineer, the convenient timing of the furnace service just before winter. Detective Morrison took notes, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. Mrs. Chen, I want you to see a doctor immediately. We need to test your blood for carbon monoxide levels. If you've been running that furnace at all in the past few weeks, you likely have elevated CO in your system. I had run it 3 times during cold snaps in late September and early October, just a few hours each time, enough to take the chill off the house. At the emergency room, they drew blood. Dr. Raymond Kim reviewed the results with a serious expression. Mrs. Chen, your carboxyhemoglobin levels are at 9%. Normal is under 2% for non-smokers. You have chronic low-level carbon monoxide poisoning. Another few weeks of regular furnace use and you would have been experiencing severe symptoms. Confusion, memory loss, weakness, eventually organ failure and death. Would it have looked natural? I asked. In an elderly person living alone, probably we might have attributed it to a stroke or heart failure. Without knowing to look for carbon monoxide, we might have missed it entirely, especially if the poisoning was slow and chronic. He paused. You got very lucky. Your grandson saved your life. The hospital kept me overnight for oxygen therapy to clear the carbon monoxide from my system. Jake stayed in the chair beside my bed. Emma came too, crying and apologizing for her parents, even though she'd had no idea what they were doing. I knew they were stressed about money, she sobbed. She was 17, a senior in high school, but I never imagined they'd do something like this. The next morning, Detective Morrison visited my hospital room with more news. We've obtained a warrant for your daughter's and son-in-law's arrest. We've also been investigating their background. Mrs. Chen, did you know that Mark's previous employer died of carbon monoxide poisoning 2 years ago? My blood ran cold. What? James Fletcher, 63 years old. Mark worked for his HVAC engineering firm. Mr. Fletcher died in his home from what was ruled accidental carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty furnace. Mark was one of the people who'd recently serviced that furnace. No charges were filed because there was no evidence of foul play and Mark had an alibi for the time of death. But the similarity to your situation raised red flags. He's done this before, I whispered. We're reopening that case. We've also contacted Mr. Fletcher's family. His daughter mentioned that Mark had approached her father several times about selling his company to Mark, and her father had refused. After his death, the company was sold at auction. Mark tried to buy it but couldn't secure financing. A pattern, Mark killed people who stood between him and what he wanted. There's more, Detective Morrison continued. We executed a search warrant on your daughter's home this morning. We found a draft power of attorney document with your signature forged. We found medical records they'd falsified showing a pattern of cognitive decline. We found a file on their computer labeled estate planning with a timeline. They were planning to have you declared incompetent within 3 months. After I was already dead from carbon monoxide poisoning, I said flatly, most likely, the CO poisoning would have caused real cognitive symptoms. They could have used that to support their incompetence claim while slowly killing you. Then when you died, it would have looked like a tragic accident. They'd inherit everything as your only heirs. I felt sick. My own daughter had plotted my murder for months, maybe years. We're also seizing their financial records, the detective added. Initial review shows they're in significant debt. Over $300,000 in credit card debt, behind on their mortgage, facing foreclosure. Mark lost his job 8 months ago and they've been hiding it from everyone. 8 months ago. Right before the furnace service that afternoon, from my hospital bed, I called Gerald Hartman, the attorney who'd handled Richard's estate and had been our family lawyer for 20 years. Margaret, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Gerald, I need you to file for emergency protective orders against Vanessa and Mark. I need you to make sure they can't access any of my properties or accounts. And I need you to help me understand what legal options I have already on it, he said. I've filed for restraining orders. Given the attempted murder charges, they'll likely be granted within hours. I'm also reviewing your estate documents. Margaret, I need to ask, do you have any other family who could potentially make a claim on your estate? No. Vanessa is my only child. Jake and Emma are my only grandchildren. Then, with your permission, I'd like to draft new estate documents immediately. Cut Vanessa out entirely. Make Jake and Emma your primary beneficiaries with proper trusts set up. We can also establish a living will and healthcare directives that specifically exclude Vanessa and Mark from any decision-making authority. Do it, I said. And Gerald, I want Jake to inherit Richard's construction tools and equipment. He's the only one who valued what Richard built. Consider it done. By the time I was discharged from the hospital the next day, restraining orders were in place. Vanessa and Mark couldn't come within 500 feet of me. They'd both been arrested and charged with attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. They'd been released on bail, but the conditions included GPS monitoring and surrender of their passports. I couldn't go back to my house yet. The police had it sealed as a crime scene. Gerald arranged for me to stay at an extended stay hotel. Jake took time off work to stay with me. Emma came to visit every day after school. She was devastated. Her entire world shattered. Her parents were facing life in prison. Her college fund, it turned out, had been emptied months ago to pay credit card bills. Grandma, I don't know what to do, she cried one evening. I got accepted to State University. I was supposed to start next fall, but there's no money, and I can't live at home with them even if they're not in jail. I just, I don't know what to do. I pulled her close. Emma, sweetheart, you're going to college. I'll pay for it. All of it, and you're going to live with me. You and Jake both, if you want. We'll figure this out together. But I'm their daughter. How can you? You are not responsible for their choices. You did nothing wrong, and you're my granddaughter. I love you. That doesn't change. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked with Gerald to assess the full scope of the damage. The furnace modifications had been extensive. The house needed complete HVAC replacement, new carbon monoxide detectors throughout, and safety inspections of every system. The costs would run over $30,000. Sue them, Gerald advised. Sue for the repair costs, your medical bills, pain and suffering, everything. They're bankrupt, Gerald. There's nothing to take. Then we make sure it's on the record. Every dollar they owe you, every bit of harm they caused. It becomes part of the criminal case and part of their permanent record. I also hired a private investigator, Marcus Webb, to look into Mark's background more thoroughly. What he found chilled me to my core. James Fletcher wasn't Mark's only potential victim. There was a Gradand who died of carbon monoxide poisoning 5 years ago. I can't prove he killed these people, Marcus told me, but the pattern is clear. Every time Mark and Vanessa needed money, someone in their orbit died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And Mark always had access to their furnaces beforehand. How many people has he killed? I asked, horrified. At least 3 that I can document, possibly more. I'm coordinating with Detective Morrison. They're reopening every suspicious CO death that Mark had any connection to. The detective work revealed something else too. Vanessa had been planning this for over 2 years. She'd started researching carbon monoxide poisoning online shortly after Richard's death. She'd downloaded articles about inheritance law, about legal competence, about how to contest wills. She'd been meticulous in her plotting. They'd been in my house dozens of times over the past 2 years, planting seeds of doubt about my competence, taking photos and videos of anything that could be construed as evidence of decline. They'd created a whole false narrative of my deteriorating mental state. If Jake hadn't seen that ductwork, I'd be dead within a month, and everyone would have believed I'd simply gotten confused. Left the furnace running and succumbed to accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. An elderly widow, living alone, tragic but not suspicious. My daughter had planned my murder that carefully. 3 weeks after Jake saved my life, I finally confronted Vanessa. It happened at the courthouse where we'd all been called for a preliminary hearing on the criminal charges. I hadn't seen her since the day Jake pulled me out of my house. She looked terrible. Her hair was greasy, her clothes rumpled. She'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. When she saw me walking into the courthouse with Jake and Emma on either side of me, her face crumpled. "Mom," she called out, rushing toward me. A bailiff stopped her. The restraining order. "Mom, please. You have to listen to me. This is all a misunderstanding. We were trying to help you. Mark was going to fix the furnace, make it more efficient. Something must have gone wrong during installation. We never meant to—" "Don't?" I said coldly. "I've seen the evidence, Vanessa. The sealed external vents, the rerouted ductwork, the fake carbon monoxide detector, the forged power of attorney, the falsified medical records. This wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. This was attempted murder. You're my mother. I would never. You tried to kill me for my money. Money you haven't earned and don't deserve. Money your father and I built through 40 years of hard work, while you bought luxury cars and country club memberships you could unafford." Mark appeared behind her, his lawyer at his side. He looked at me with such hatred that I actually stepped back. "You old bitch," he snarled. "You've ruined everything. We gave you a chance to do this the easy way. Sign over power of attorney. Let us manage your assets. Live out your final years in a nice assisted living facility. But you were too stubborn, too controlling. You did this to yourself." Detective Morrison appeared instantly. "Mr. Chen, I'd advise you not to threaten the victim in front of a dozen witnesses in a courthouse full of security cameras. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just stating facts. She could have made this easy. Instead, she's destroying her own family over money. You tried to murder her," Jake said, his voice shaking with rage. "You modified her furnace to pump carbon monoxide into her house. You were going to let her die slowly, confused and sick, and then inherit everything while pretending to be grieving?" "That's not what happened," Vanessa insisted. "Mark, tell them it was an accident. Tell them we were just trying to help." "Shut up, Vanessa," Mark snapped. "Don't say anything without the lawyer present." But Vanessa was falling apart. We weren't going to let her die. We were going to get her help. We were going to use the confusion from the co-poisoning to have her declared incompetent, put her somewhere safe, and then manage her properties for her. It wasn't murder. It was for her own good. "Vanessa, stop talking," Mark yelled. But she couldn't stop. 2 weeks of stress and fear and guilt came pouring out. "Mom, you're 68 years old. You can't manage 12 properties by yourself anymore. What if you have a stroke? What if you fall? You need someone looking after you, and we're your family. We have a right to you. You have a right to nothing," I said quietly. "I earned every dollar of my money. Your father earned his. We built our wealth through hard work and sacrifice. You spent your adult life spending money you didn't have and expecting other people to bail you out. When I wouldn't hand over my assets, you decided to kill me for them. Don't you dare pretend this was for my benefit." The preliminary hearing was brutal. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically. The modified furnace, the sealed vents, the fake detector, my elevated carbon monoxide levels, the forged documents, the financial records showing motive, the pattern of previous deaths. Vanessa cried through the whole thing. Mark sat stone-faced, his jaw clenched. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Helena Reeves, listened to everything with an expression of growing disgust. "I've been on the bench for 23 years, she said at the end. "I've seen children steal from their parents. I've seen elder abuse in many forms. But this level of calculation, this degree of premeditation to murder your own mother for financial gain, this is among the worst cases I've encountered. Bail is revoked. The defendants will be held without bond until trial," Vanessa screamed. "No, Your Honor, please. I have a daughter. I have a family." "You should have thought of that before you tried to murder your mother," Judge Reeves said flatly. "Bailiff, remand them to custody." I watched my daughter and son-in-law being led away in handcuffs. Emma was sobbing beside me. Jake had his arm around her shoulders, his face grim. I felt ... nothing. No satisfaction, no grief. Just a cold, hollow emptiness where my love for my daughter used to be. The criminal case took 8 months to work through the system. Mark and Vanessa both initially pled not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Their attorneys eventually negotiated plea deals to avoid trial. Mark pled guilty to attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 15 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 12 years. He also faced charges in the James Fletcher case, where new evidence had emerged, linking him definitively to that furnace modification as well. That would add another 10 years to his sentence. Vanessa pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, and fraud. She was sentenced to 10 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 8 years. They were also ordered to pay restitution of $185,000 to cover my medical bills, property damage, legal fees, and pain and suffering. Given that they'd filed for bankruptcy, I'd never see a penny of it. But Gerald had been right. It mattered to have it on record. Both lost their professional licenses permanently. Mark's engineering license was revoked. Vanessa's financial advisor credentials were stripped. Even after prison, they'd never work in their fields again. The divorce proceedings started while they were in prison. They blamed each other, each claiming the other had been the mastermind. Their marriage destroyed along with everything else. Throughout it all, Jake and Emma stood with me. Emma moved into my house once it was cleared and repaired. She enrolled at State University with a full scholarship I'd endowed in her grandfather's name. She's studying social work, planning to help protect vulnerable elderly people from exactly what almost happened to me. Jake continued his carpenter apprenticeship. He married his girlfriend Sarah a year after saving my life. They're expecting their first child this spring. Jake is taking over management of 3 of my rental properties, learning the business from the ground up, just like his grandfather would have wanted. I updated my will. Vanessa is explicitly excluded, receiving nothing. Jake and Emma split everything equally, with the assets held in trusts that will ensure financial security for generations. Richards' construction tools and equipment went to Jake Richards. Book collection and antique furniture went to Emma. They'll remember their grandfather's values, not their parents' greed. Patricia, my social worker friend, helped me process everything through therapy. You're allowed to grieve, she told me. You lost your daughter. Even though she's alive, you lost who you thought she was. That's a real loss. She was right. I did grieve. For months, I'd wake up crying, remembering Vanessa as a little girl, wondering where it all went wrong. When did love turn to greed? When did she start seeing me as an obstacle rather than her mother? I'll never know. She writes me letters from prison full of apologies and excuses. I don't read them. Gerald screens my mail and saves them for the record, but I can't bear to see her handwriting. Emma reads them sometimes. She still loves her mother even after everything. I don't try to change that. She's working through her own grief and betrayal in therapy. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? Emma asked me once. No, I said, honestly. She tried to murder me. She planned it for months. She watched me start to get sick from the carbon monoxide and did nothing. She was going to let me die, confused and frightened. And then she was going to stand at my funeral and pretend to grieve while inheriting my money. I can't forgive that. I understand, Emma said quietly. I don't think I can either. 2 years later, I'm 70 years old and thriving. I sold 2 of my rental properties and invested the proceeds in Jake's new construction company. Chen & Sons Construction, named in honor of Richard. Jake is building it the same way his grandfather did. Reputation, integrity, quality work. He's already employing 8 people and has a waiting list of clients. Emma is in her junior year of university, maintaining a 4.0 GPA and working part-time at an elder advocacy nonprofit. She's passionate, driven, and committed to protecting people like me. I've joined several boards focused on elder abuse prevention. I speak at community centers and senior living facilities about the warning signs of financial exploitation and family manipulation. I tell my story, the parts I'm comfortable sharing, to help others recognize when their own families might be planning something similar. Your children are not entitled to your money while you're alive. I tell audiences, you earned it. You decide what to do with it. And if they're pressuring you to sign over control, to give them power of attorney, to let them help manage your assets, ask yourself, are they trying to help me or help themselves to what's mine? The responses I get are heartbreaking. So many people share stories of children who steal from them, who gaslight them, who manipulate and abuse them financially. Elder abuse is an epidemic, and it happens in families that look perfect from the outside. Vanessa and Mark are still in prison. They'll be there for years yet. Their house was foreclosed on. Their cars were repossessed. They lost everything just as they'd planned for me to lose everything. The difference is, I would have lost my life. They just lost their freedom and their future. That seems fair to me. Jake's daughter, my great-granddaughter, was born 6 months ago. They named her Margaret Rose after me and Richard's mother. When I hold her, I think about legacy, about what we pass down to the next generation. Vanessa tried to teach her children that they were entitled to other people's money, that elder parents were obstacles to be overcome. She taught them that wealth without work was their birthright. But Jake and Emma learned different lessons. From Richard, they learned the value of honest work. From me, they learned financial responsibility and independence. From their parents' betrayal, they learned that character matters more than money. Little Margaret Rose will grow up knowing her great-grandfather's story, how he built something from nothing through hard work, how he valued integrity over profit, how he loved his family but didn't enable their dysfunction. She'll know her great-grandmother's story too, how I survived my own daughter's murder attempt, how I chose justice over family loyalty when family proved disloyal, how I built a new family from the ashes of the old one, with the grandchildren who stood by me when my own child tried to kill me. That's the legacy I'm leaving. Not just money, but the story of how to survive betrayal with dignity, how to choose self-protection over misplaced family obligation, how to recognize that blood relation doesn't obligate you to trust people who've proven themselves untrustworthy. On the second anniversary of the day Jake saved my life, we had a family dinner. Jake and Sarah with baby Margaret, Emma and her boyfriend David, Gerald Hartman, who's become more family than attorney, Patricia, my friend who helped me through the darkest days. We toasted Richard's memory. We toasted survival. We toasted justice. To Grandpa, Jake said, raising his glass, who taught us that honest work builds character. And to Grandma, who taught us that strength sometimes means saying no to your own family. To family, I added. Not the one we're born into necessarily, but the one we choose. The one that earns our trust and keeps it. We drank to that. To chosen family. To survived betrayal. To justice served and lives rebuilt. My daughter tried to kill me for money she thought she was entitled to. Instead, she lost everything while I kept everything and built something better from the ruins. I'm 70 years old. I manage 12 rental properties. I run my real estate investments with the same sharp mind I've always had. I help my grandson build his construction company. I watch my granddaughter change the world one elder protection case at a time. I hold my great-granddaughter and tell her about the great-grandfather she'll never meet but whose values live on in all of us. This is my life. It's not the one I expected. I never imagined my own child would try to murder me. I never imagined I'd cut her out of my life completely, but I'm here. I'm healthy. I'm surrounded by people who genuinely love me, not my money. And every morning when I wake up in my home, breathing clean air, I'm grateful that Jake looked at my basement that October afternoon. He saw what they'd done. He got me out. He saved my life. And I get to keep living it, on my terms, surrounded by real family. That's justice. That's peace. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever dealt with family members who saw you as a source of money rather than a person to love? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.